हाँ, तो मुझे फीडबैक दे कि मैं स्टार्ट करूँ फिर। Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will discuss the sodium, potassium, and chlorine biological importance. Okay, so that what is sodium, what is potassium, and what is chlorine, and what are their biological and physiological importance and day-to-day life. Okay, before going into that detail, I wish you all the best regarding this pandemic situation. That may you all keep safe and stay home and stay safe. Okay, so first of all, we have to talk about the sodium. Okay, you people have studied in physiology that what is sodium, what is the concentration of the sodium outside, inside the cell, and what are the different situations like hyponatremia, hypernatremia, and what are the clinical features. But let me wind it in 40 to 45 minutes. Okay, so sodium is the chief cation of the extracellular fluid. Okay, आप सब लोगों को पता है कि what is extracellular fluid, what is intracellular fluid, what is interstitial fluid. Okay, so uh, sodium is the chief cation of the extracellular fluid. About 50% of the body sodium is present in the bones. Means 50% within the bones and 50% outside the bones. So outside there will be two places, either extracellular fluid, okay, or soft tissues. So 40% in the extracellular fluid and 10% in the soft tissues. 50% in the bones, 40% in the extracellular fluid, and 10% in the soft tissues. Okay. Hmm. Sodium is the most abundant ion of the extracellular compartment. Uh, as you people know that total body water is 60% of the body weight. That um, when someone weighs 100 kg, so 60% weight, it means 60 kg will be water and 40% all other things. Okay, 60% is the total body water, and this water is uh, located in 3 to 4 places like extracellular fluid, intracellular fluid, interstitial fluid, and intravascular fluid. Okay, so the majority of the total body water is intracellular, which is 40% of the body weight. Okay, which is 40% of the body weight. Okay, and uh, extracellular fluid is 20%. Okay, and extracellular fluid is 20%. It means 60% is divided into 40 and 20. 40 is intracellular fluid and 20 is extracellular. The extracellular is further divided into either interstitial fluid, which is 15%, and intravascular fluid, which is 5%. This is very much basic thing you people must know about it. Okay, that intracellular fluid is the largest in amount, which is 40%. Extracellular is 20%. 20% is further divided into either 15% interstitial fluid, which is the fluid in between the cells, adjacent cells, okay, and 5% is the intracellular fluid, sorry, intravascular fluid, okay. So, uh, talking about the biochemical and biological functions of the sodium, The normal range of the sodium is 132 to 142 or 135 to 145, but this is 142 milli equivalent per liter. I repeat, 142 milli equivalent or millimole per liter. Okay, this is the normal concentration of the sodium in the extracellular fluid. So here are various functions like acid-base balance, acid-base balance, okay, and osmotic or oncotic pressure, okay, ठीक है, and muscle irritability, cell permeability, okay, and absorption of the glucose, galactose, and amino acids, okay, and initiating and maintaining heartbeat. Let me discuss each of them. Okay, or one is acid base balance. Okay, so sodium is a mineral. Okay, and it alters either in acidosis or alkalosis. So the exact proportion of the acid base balance is maintained by sodium, potassium, and chloride. All of them, all the three minerals, they participate in the maintaining or regulation of the acid base balance. All of them, sodium, potassium, and chlorine, they three, they all of them contribute in the regulation of the acid base balance. Okay, the most important function of the sodium is maintaining the osmotic pressure in the extracellular compartment. Okay, it means I have delivered one lecture in the osmotic and oncotic pressure. I remember it, and I talked to you people that what is osmotic and what is oncotic pressure. Okay, I remind you people that osmotic pressure is the pressure of uh, pushing the water into them. I mean, when there are two rooms, okay, and room A and room B, okay, the room A contain high concentration of sodium, and the room B contains lesser concentration of the sodium. So the one which contain the high concentration of solute will maintain the high oncotic pressure or high osmotic pressure. Okay, and the one with the low concentration of the sodium, the low concentration of the sodium will contain less less degree, or in other words, the osmotic pressure will be lesser than that to room number A. So further, when the room A has high concentration of osmotic pressure, it means it has the high capacity to suck the water into it. Okay, so uh, sodium is required for the maintenance of the osmotic pressure and fluid balance. So if let's suppose in the extravascular compartment, sorry, the extracellular compartment or the intravascular compartment, when there is the concentration of the sodium is increasing time by time, so the adjacent water which is present inside the cells, okay, they will they will be sucked by the sodium which is present in the vessels. Okay, so there will be, what will happen, there will be high fluid level in the vessels, so it may shoot up the blood pressure. Okay, so in other words, if the concentration of sodium is increasing inside the cell or intracellularly, so the fluid will be sucked back into the cells and the cells will be swollen up because of high osmotic pressure within the cells. Okay, so there will be a drop in the blood pressure. Okay, there will the extracellular fluid will be dropped because all of them will be sucked back into the cells by the high concentration of the sodium, and because of high concentration of sodium, there will be high osmotic pressure inside the cells. So this is the shifting of the fluid along the membranes or along the cells. Okay, In other words, if there is high concentration or high osmotic pressure in the interstitium, in between the cells, not inside the cells or intravascular, but in between the adjacent cells, what will happen? There will be increased fluid in between the cells, so there will be edema. The whole body will be edematous. Okay, this is the measure and this is the basic concept. You people must know it. Okay, uh, it is necessary for the normal muscle irritability and cell permeability. As you people know about the action potential and the propagation of the action potential, the threshold potential, the resting membrane potential, that there is the major contribution of the sodium. So if there is not sodium present, so there will be no as much permeability, action potential, propagation of the action potential, threshold potential, or resting membrane potential. Okay. Uh, Number four is sodium is involved in the intestinal absorption of the glucose, galactose, and amino acids. You people have studied it about the absorptions of these things in the GIT because there is one terminology which is called co-transport. So co-transport means the transport of two adjacent things in one direction. Okay. So if sodium and glucose or sodium and galactose or sodium and amino acids are absorbed from the GIT lumen and back into the cell, so this is called co-transport uh, of these things. Okay. Number five is it is necessary for initiating and maintaining heartbeat. So the pacemaker, which is also called SA node, which is present at the top of the right atrium, what happens over there? There are various sodium leaky channels. Okay, sodium leaky channels, uh, and what happens in that uh, sodium leaky channels, that the sodium continuously tickles into the cells of the SA node, and there is generation of the action potential. Okay, so the heart which beats by the action of the action potential propagated in the SA node, it is because of the leaky sodium channels. Okay, dietary requirements 5 to 10 gram per day. We mainly consumed as NaCl. Okay, your table salt है, the daily requirement is 5 to 10 gram per day. For a person with a family of history of hypertension, जो डेली रिक्वायरमेंट्स है वो कम होंगे, 5 ग्राम होंगे. ठीक है, सॉरी, जो जो हाइपरटेंसिव पेशेंट्स है उनके लिए 1 ग्राम पर डे इज रिकमेंडेड. ओके, एंड नॉर्मल इज 5 to 10 gram. Okay, in normal individuals, not hypertensive. Okay, so if we take 10 gram of NaCl or table salt, it will contain 4 gram of sodium, and the required is 5 to 10. ठीक है, सोर्सेज जो है जो कॉमन साल्ट है सोडियम क्लोराइड है. ठीक है, विच इज अ कुकिंग मीडियम इन द मेजर सोर्स ऑफ सोडियम. It also contains in the bread, whole grains, leafy vegetables, nuts, eggs, and milk. These are the requirements. These are the sources of the sodium. And the absorption sodium is readily absorbed in the GH tract, and therefore very little of it, less than 2%, is normally found in the feces. But if there is diarrhea, so large quantities of sodium is lost in the feces, which will lead to hyponatremia. So it is absorbed in the GIT tract, and very less than 2% is found in the feces. All of them is back absorbed. And 135 to 145, this is the range of the sodium concentration in the plasma. So sodium is an extracellular cation, therefore the blood cell contain much less 35 milliequivalent. The things which I want to clear to you people is mineralocorticoids. Okay, mineralocorticoid contains aldosterone. One things are called glucocorticoid, one is called mineralocorticoids. Okay, the glucocorticoids are corticosteroids in simple words cortisol, okay, and in the mineralocorticoid the thing is called aldosterone. All of them are secreted by adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex contains three layers: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. Okay, so the aldosterone, which is called mineralocorticoid, what's the function of aldosterone? Aldosterone do an important function. Okay, you people should know it. Aldosterone acts on the kidney nephrons. Okay, not in the proximal, not in the thick ascending loop, but in the distal convoluted tubules. Okay, what does it do? Aldosterone absorbs the filtered sodium back into the blood. People got it? Aldosterone reabsorb the filtered sodium which is present in the renal tubules back into the blood. It means aldosterone perform three major important functions. It really reabsorbs the sodium and it excretes the potassium back into the urine. So there is a pump, okay, which reabsorb the sodium and excrete the potassium. So if this pump is working properly, so this all of the filtered sodium will be reabsorbed back into the blood. And if this pump is not working or there is no aldosterone at all, this pump will not be working at all. Okay, so there will be no absorption of the sodium. All of the filtered sodium will be lost in the urine. Okay, so there is a tight control of the aldosterone secretion. If there is deficiency of aldosterone, the disease is called Addison disease. And if there is a high concentration of aldosterone, condition is called Cushing syndrome. Okay, so the excretion of the sodium is mainly on the kidneys. Okay, now look into the beauty of the nature. 800 gram of sodium per day is filtered by the glomeruli. 800 gram. It's a very large amount. And 99% of this filtered sodium is reabsorbed back by the renal tubules by an active process. And this process is controlled by aldosterone, as I told you people. So extremely sweating also causes considerable amount of sodium loss from the body. There is, however, individual variation in the sodium loss. So the thing which I want to clear you people is aldosterone. Aldosterone reabsorb the sodium back and excrete one potassium. One sodium back, one potassium lost. One sodium back, one potassium lost. Okay. So if this pump is working in larger quantities, I mean in controlled behavior, so sodium, all of the sodium will be reabsorbed, which will cause hypernatremia, and all of the potassium will be lost in the urine. So there will be hypokalemia. And in other words, if this pump is not working at all, so there will be no reabsorption of the sodium. There will be hyponatremia, and the potassium which is present inside the cells uh, that will not be lost in the urine. So there will be hyperkalemia and vice versa. Okay. Now, hyponatremia. This is a condition in which the serum sodium levels falls below 135 milliequivalent per liter. If the sodium range if the sodium concentration falls below the 135 milliequivalent per liter, it is called hyponatremia. So hyponatremia may occur due to diarrhea, so that all the sodium will be lost in the feces, it will not be reabsorbed. And if we take some table salt in the food, and if someone vomits, so vomiting, it will be thrown back from the stomach. And chronic renal disease, that the kidney is not working, the kidney tubules not reabsorb the sodium potassium 2 chloride transport which is present in the thick wall or the proximal convoluted tubule. So normally the 99% of the filtered sodium is reabsorbed back. But if there is some pathology in the kidney, so the kidney will not be able to reabsorb back the filtered sodium back into the blood. Okay, this will lead to hyponatremia. Okay, and at the top, Edison disease, if there is no aldosterone. Okay, so the sodium will not be reabsorbed back. Okay, and administration of the salt-free fluid to patients may also cause hyponatremia. Is simple, and this is due to the this may also be due to overhydration. If someone drinks plenty of water, or someone is transfused too many fluids intravascularly, so the extracellular fluids will become diluted and the concentration of the sodium will falls down. Okay, so this is also hyponatremia. Okay, what are the clinical signs of hyponatremia? Nausea, vomiting, anorexia, lack of interest in feeding, muscle cramps, confusion, lethargy, okay, and culminate ultimately in seizures and coma. So seizures are the quite likely when the sodium concentration falls below 113 milliequivalent per liter. Okay, so all these are the signs symptoms of hyponatremia. When someone becomes do vomiting, nausea, anorexia, muscle cramps, confusion, and at the top seizures. Okay, the other thing is called hypernatremia. This condition is characterized by an elevation of the serum sodium level. Okay, when the concentration of the sodium rises in the blood, of course all of the fluid in the surrounding tissues will be sucked by the sodium into the vessels, and the blood volume and blood pressure will shoot up, as I told you in the start. It may occur due to hyperactivity of the adrenal cortex, which is called Cushing syndrome. The Cushing syndrome, what will it do? The aldosterone, which is secreted in larger quantities in Cushing syndrome, it will reabsorb all the filtered sodium back into the blood, and this will be followed by water because of high अनकोटिक और osmotic pressure. ठीक है, ये जो चीज है ये बहुत सिंपल है. ठीक है, इनको कॉम्प्लिकेट ना करें. These are very simple logics. Okay, loss of water from the body, which is called dehydration. Okay, so एक्स्ट्रा की जो कंपार्टमेंट है वो एक उसकी ऐसी है, अगर आपने उसमें फ्लूइड ज्यादा करना है, ठीक है, तो सोडियम की कंसंट्रेशन खुद ब खुद कम हो जाएगी. ठीक है, और अगर आपने उससे फ्लूइड निकालना है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ डिहाइड्रेशन, so the concentration of sodium will ultimately be raised compared to the water. This is very simple logic. फ्लूइड ज्यादा करो, ऑस्मोलैरिटी कम होगी. फ्लूइड कम करो, ऑस्मोलैरिटी ज्यादा होगी. ठीक है, rapid administration of the sodium salts also increase sodium concentration, which is very simple. And the pregnancy, where the progesterone and steroid hormones, they cause sodium and water retention in the body, leading to edema. Now in edema, along with water, sodium concentration in the body is also elevated. If we administer diuretic drug, which will cause the urinary output of water along with the sodium, this is the treatment modality in hypertension and in congestive cardiac failure, where both sides of the heart are failed, right side and left side, both of them. So we do diuretics. What the diuretics do? it um, it increases the urinary output of water, followed by the sodium. ठीक है? When someone comes with you in a very high blood pressure, okay, hypertensive patient, what will we administer? We administer injection Lasix, uh, which contains furosemide, which is a loop diuretic. So the what the furosemide do? It increases the urinary output of water along with the sodium. Okay. Now let's talk about the potassium. Potassium is the principal intracellular cation. Sodium was the principal extracellular cation, and potassium is the principal intracellular cation. It is equally important in the extracellular fluid for specific functions. Now remember this basic concept. Cells are the bags of potassium. If you remember this, you won't confuse in your career about the concentration of the sodium and potassium, either uh, increase outside, decrease inside. Okay, so you won't fill in that uh, rumors. Okay, cells are the bags of potassium. It means potassium is the basic intracellular compartment cation. And what are the biochemical functions of the potassium? It performs various functions. It also contains the intracellular osmotic pressure. Sodium maintains the outside or the extracellular cationic function, and potassium contains the maintains the intracellular osmotic pressure. Okay, it is required for the regulation of the acid-base balance and water balance in the cells. The pyruvate kinase enzyme of glycolysis is potassium dependent. Okay, and potassium is also required for the transmissions of the neural impulses. Okay, now the proteins which are synthesized by the ribosomes inside the cells, they are also potassium dependent. Okay, and the most important function is the cardiac muscle activity. It controls or it influences the cardiac muscles activity. So this is very much important. You people should know that the cardiac muscles is very much toxic or very much related to the either hypokalemia or hyperkalemia. Okay, so the range of the potassium is 3.5 to 5.5. It means 3.5 to 5. This is very low range compared to the sodium, which is 135 to 145. So it means in this very much low range, there is no chance of mistake at all. Okay? So one should be very careful regarding the managing of a patient with hypokalemia or hyperkalemia, because it directly influences the cardiac muscles. So these are the various important functions. Potassium is required for transmission of nerve impulses. It also the pyruvate kinase enzyme of glycolysis is potassium dependent, and acid-base balance, as I told you in the start, that sodium, potassium, and chlorine, all of them are required for the regulation of the acid-base balance and water balance. But you people should know the sixth number function, that it influences the cardiac muscle activity. Banana, orange, pineapple, potato, beans, chicken, liver, these are the sources of tender coconut water is a very rich source of potassium. You people should know exactly the banana, at least the banana. The absorption is same as that of the sodium. It is absorbed in the GIT tract and it's very efficient. Okay. Now this range is 3.5 to 5.5. Now not 3.4 to 5. This range is 3.5 to 5.5. You people should correct it. Okay. This is wrong. Although this is a picture of your textbook, but this is wrong. 3.5 to 5.5 milli equivalent or millimole per liter. The whole body contains much higher levels of potassium. It is predominant in intracellular ketine, and this range should strictly be monitored. Okay. Potassium is mainly excreted through urine. The maintenance of the body acid-base balance influences potassium excretion. Uh, Aldosterone increases the excretion of the potassium. As I told you that aldosterone reabsorbs the sodium and excretes the potassium. Now the potassium is the major intracellular ketine. Its range is 3.5 to 5.5. Okay, and 75% of the potassium is inside the skeletal muscles. Okay, ठीक है, and the sodium potassium ATPase pump. You people have studied that it throws the 3 sodium outside and 2 potassium inside. 3 sodium outside and 2 potassium inside. That's why it's called sodium potassium ATPase pump. It maintains the high concentration of the sodium outside the cell and high concentration of potassium inside the cell. Now, serum potassium concentration is maintained with a narrow range. Either high or low concentration are dangerous since potassium affects the contractility of the heart muscle, as I told you. Okay, so when the concentration of the potassium falls below 3.5, it is called hypokalemia, and if it exceeds the 5.5, it is called hyperkalemia. Both of them are dangerous for heart muscle, because both of them cause cardiac arrest and ultimately the death. Okay, so what are the things which cause hypokalemia? Okay, at the top there is Cushing syndrome. As I told you, when the aldosterone concentration is increasing in Cushing syndrome, so the all of the sodium will be reabsorbed and all of the potassium will be lost in the urine. When the potassium is lost in the urine, it will lead to hypokalemia. Okay, or if someone administer corticosteroids like aldosterone intravenously, or if someone is treating diabetic coma with insulin. Okay, so insulin is very much important for the potassium, because insulin keeps the potassium inside the cell. So if we administer someone insulin, it will lead to hypokalemia, because insulin uh, don't love potassium outside the cell. It wanna keep the potassium inside the cell. Okay. So the symptoms of hypokalemia includes irritability, muscular weakness, tachycardia, cardiomegaly, and cardiac arrest, and ultimately death. The changes which can be noticed in the ECG, flattened views with inverted T waves. Have you ever studied ECG? There is a wave which is called T wave. If that T wave is inverted, it's called hypokalemia, and if that T wave is dulled and sharp, so this will hyperkalemia. If the T wave in the ECG is flattened or inverted, it is called hypokalemia. And if that T wave is sharp or peaked T waves. Okay. Now the hyperkalemia. Increase in the concentration of serum potassium is observed in renal failure, because sodium the kidneys are not functioning to excrete the potassium out of the body. So the potassium will be accumulated. Or if there is a Addison disease, there is no aldosterone, so there will be no reabsorption of the sodium and there will be no excretion of the potassium from the body. All of the potassium will be accumulated and will lead to hyperkalemia. So the manifestation of hyperkalemia includes the depression of the central nervous system, mental confusion, numbness, bradycardia with reduced heart sound, and finally cardiac arrest. Both of them, hypokalemia or hyperkalemia, both of them causes cardiac arrest. Okay. and the change is as elevated T waves, and in hypokalemia there is flattened T waves. जो इंट्रासेलुलर पोटेशियम है सेलुलर वॉल्यूम को मेंटेन करते हैं, पीएच को रेगुलेट करते हैं, एंजाइम्स को एक्टिवेट करते हैं, प्रोटीन सिंथेसिस में हेल्प करते हैं एंड सेल ग्रोथ। ठीक है, जो सेल्स के आउटसाइड है वो रेस्टिंग मेम्ब्रेन, वो रेस्टिंग सेल मेम्ब्रेन को की जो पोटेंशियल है उसको मेंटेन करते हैं, न्यूरोमस्कुलर एक्साइटेबिलिटी करते हैं एंड कार्डियक पेसमेकर की जो रिदम है, ठीक है, उसको मेंटेन करते हैं। Now these are the things which control the potassium hemostasis. These are the things which balances the potassium level in the body. Okay, insulin, beta 2 agonist, aldosterone, epinephrine. You people should know it if you want to be a good physician in your future. Okay, like insulin and beta 2 agonist. Beta 2 agonist means you people will study in pharmacology, but there are some drugs which activate the beta 2 receptors, which are called beta 2 agonist, like salmeterol, formoterol, indacetrol. These are the things which are called beta 2 agonist. And insulin, you people know, which is secreted by the alpha cells of the pancreas, islets of Langerhans. Both of them shifts the potassium into the cell by increasing the activity of the sodium potassium ATPase. If you remember this thing, in the future, when someone present to you people with hyperkalemia with potassium level of greater than 5.5 milliequivalent per liter, you people will administer insulin or beta 2 agonist, so that the beta 2 agonist or the insulin will shift the potassium back into the cell, and there will be maintenance or the equilibrium of the potassium across the membrane. Okay, so insulin and beta 2 agonist, salmeterol, formoterol, they don't love the potassium outside the cell. They shift the potassium into the cells and leads to hypokalemia. Okay, and aldosterone, as I told you already, and epinephrine. But insulin and epinephrine acts within a few minutes. Aldosterone requires about an hour to stimulate the uptake of potassium. So if someone, let's suppose if someone comes to you in emergency department with potassium levels of 7.8 or 9.8, okay, what will you do? Before administering aldosterone supplements or aldosterone stimulators, you people should start the insulin or beta 2 agonist. Okay, so if you start the insulin and beta 2 agonist, so the potassium will be shifted back into the cells, okay, and the level will be maintained. After that, you can administer aldosterones. Okay, now the insulin, which push the potassium into the liver and skeletal muscles, aldosterone push the potassium into the skeletal muscles, and epinephrine, okay, it also pushes the potassium into the cells. So these are the means, or these are the ways how to treat hyperkalemia. Okay, now this is a very much important thing. You people should know that acid-base imbalance, what happens to the potassium. Either the potassium increases in metabolic acidosis or metabolic alkalosis. What happens to potassium if someone is suffering from respiratory acidosis or respiratory alkalosis or metabolic acidosis and metabolic alkalosis? So you people remember one mnemonic which is made by myself, me, that which is in Pashto, that when चिकलहुम मतलब pH ज्यादा की ना पोटाशियम कमी और चिकल पोटाशियम कमी की ना pH ज्यादा, reverse is that. pH कमेगी, पोटाशियम ज्यादेगी, pH ज्यादेगी, पोटाशियम कमेगी. Okay, so I told you color pH कमेगी. It means when there is acidosis, low pH means acidosis, so there will be high potassium, potassium ज्यादेगी. It means hyperkalemia. So acidosis will leads to hyperkalemia, and alkalosis will leads to hypokalemia. Okay, so talking about the acidosis, either it's metabolic or respiratory acidosis or any other type of acidosis, it will lead to increased plasma potassium. pH कमेगी and potassium ज्यादेगी. It means acidosis leads to hyperkalemia. Okay, and here are certain other things like crush injuries, road traffic accidents, burns, tumor lysis syndromes, rhabdomyolysis, destruction of the cells. They also release the potassium to the extracellular fluid. And vigorous exercise, they also increase the potassium. Okay. So epinephrine, insulin, and aldosterone, these are physiological things which are secreted by our human body or our body, and they maintain the plasma potassium within constant within constant limits. And if there is some imbalance in the acid base balance, or there is the plasma osmolality is either high or low, or if there is cell lysis, or if there is some vigorous exercise, this will lead to the uh, disruption of the equilibrium of the potassium in the human body. Okay, and there are certain drugs which induces the hyperkalemia. So one is ACE inhibitors, potassium sparing diuretics inhibitors. You people study in pharmacology. Okay, now time is very short, so I will try to finish off within 2 to 3 minutes. That what is chlorine? Chlorine is also a constituent of the sodium chloride, and exactly to the potassium and the sodium. It also uh, helps in the regulation of the acid-base equilibrium. Okay, the salivary amylase is activated by the chloride. Remember it. And the gastric juices, which contain HCl, so there is chloride. Okay, chloride and the HCl, and salivary amylase is activated by chloride. Okay, the dietary requirements 5 to 10 grams. Okay, 5 to 10 grams, and eggs and leafy vegetables and milk. These are the richest source of the chlorine. It is also absorbed in the GIT tract. Okay, and if the concentration of the chlorine drops, it is called hypochloremia, and if it's rising, it is called hyperchloremia. So a reduction in the serum chloride level may occur due to vomiting, diarrhea, respiratory alkalosis, addition disease, and excessive sweating. And increase in the serum chloride concentration may be due to dehydration, respiratory. You people should. I will I will share these slides with the CR, so you people can take from this relevant CR. Okay, and I will provide you. If someone has any question regarding sodium, potassium, you people can ask me. You people can ask me if there is any question. Hypernatremia means someone is asking what is hypernatremia. So hypernatremia is when the concentration of the sodium exceeds 145. Okay, No, there is no relation of the hypernatremia with hypokalemia. Okay, because there is no as such contribution between the sodium and potassium. So if there is hypernatremia, it's not necessary to cause hypokalemia. Hyponatremia and Addison disease are same. No, Addison disease, Addison disease causes the hyponatremia. In Addison disease, there is no aldosterone secretion, so there is no reabsorption of the sodium back into the blood. So Addison disease causes hyponatremia, and Cushing syndrome. In Cushing syndrome, there is increased secretion of aldosterone. So if aldosterone is secreted in larger quantities, so there will be reabsorption of the sodium, which will cause hypernatremia, and there will be larger quantities of potassium excreted, which will cause hypokalemia. Okay. Aldosterone acts on potassium level in the blood level or cellular level. Aldosterone is a hormone which is secreted by the adrenal cortex, and it principally works on the distal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubules on the cells of the nephrons, not in the blood. Okay, so uh, how does hypokalemia and Cushing syndromes are related? Hypokalemia and Cushing syndromes are related with each other. As I told you, in Cushing syndrome, there is increased amount of aldosterone. Okay, so aldosterone reabsorb the sodium and excrete the potassium. Aldosterone reabsorb the sodium and excrete the potassium. So if there is high concentration of aldosterone, it means there will be high excretion of the potassium and high absorption of the sodium. So high absorption of the sodium means hypernatremia, and high excretion of the potassium means hypokalemia. You got it? Yeah. So you people should know. If you people remember this one thing about aldosterone, that what aldosterone do with the distal convoluted tubule, that it reabsorb the sodium and excrete the potassium. So the things will be clear. Okay, ठीक Uh, I'm going to close the screen share. Uh, Stay blessed, stay home, love.